Hi everyone, it's Professor Lucien. This is Lecture 12 for Safety 388, Ergonomics and Musculoskeletal Disorders. So I'm going to go over the injury data, talk a little bit about citation-related data, and then we'll get into the evaluation methods, things available through OSHA, things available outside of OSHA, and then spend a little time with solutions. And this week I've got a lot of extra videos to help kind of show you the whole plethora of what's out there. So first off, everybody, OSHA does not have an ergonomic standard. They had adopted one, I believe, in 1999 or 2000. It was basically it was one of the last things the Clinton administration had done. And then the Bush administration took over and they had rescinded it by March. So it was on the books for 3 months, but never actually enforced. So we don't have one. However, OSHA will cite documentable issues using the General Duty Clause, the 5A1. And I'll show you that in a moment. They do have a Safety and Health Topics page. They do have a chapter in their technical manual on back disorders and injuries. So we have two resources. NIOSH has a page, and then ANSI has a list of different types of consensus ergonomic standards, and we'll take a look at that in a little bit. So overexertion or musculoskeletal disorders tend to be the most frequent cause of injury in the workplace. Now this data is old, and we had looked at this in Module 2. But the problem is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they don't provide this type of good graph anymore. What I think is interesting is the decline. Gone down a lot. Whereas these, they came down and then they came up, and it went up and went down, but it kind of stayed generally the same. Now, why is this? Well, there's a lot of reasons for this. Ergonomics was popular back in the 1990s, but it's been the advances in technology that has truly reduced the human workload. It's going faster every year. So even though it's still number one, it shows that we have the most promise in trying to fix it. Sprains, strains, and tears kind of falls under overexertion, and as you can see, it kind of represents that same general trend. When we looked at the Liberty Mutual Safety Index for 2024, overexertion involving outside resources was number 1, bodily reactions was number 5, and repetitive motion is number 10. So 3 of the top 10 most expensive, or should we say it that way? The most costly, that's a better word, types of injuries revolve around ergonomics, but we don't have an ergonomic standard. So doesn't that seem kind of counterintuitive? It can cause disability. The thing is, it really involves the person and not only their physical capabilities, but their ability to, one, recognize when they should be doing the right technique or using the right tools, but what I would consider secondary is the ability to recover. That as you age, your capability, your capacity, that's a better word for it, to recover from a musculoskeletal injury is greatly reduced. And it can sometimes involve surgery, and surgery is never 100%. So it is costly. And another thing is it usually involves like occupational therapy or physical therapy in the recovery period. What's better is to try to design the stuff out or reduce the amount of risk, musculoskeletal risk, whether it's repetition, whether it's force, whether it's awkward posture. All these things contribute to these disorders. Here is just a collection of different ways in which to explain the same thing. So the risk factors for ergonomics tend to be repetition, contact stress, force, static postures, awkward postures. Sometimes they throw in cold, sometimes they throw in vibration. All contribute to conditions. The type of disorders, you've got back, carpal tunnel, tendonitis, tenosynovitis, thoracic. Yeah, I said that right. Thoracic period. Favorite dinosaur, 1, 2, 3, velociraptor, and bursitis. If you're not familiar with these terms, it would probably be good to become familiar with them. It has to do with the spine or the spinal cord. It has to do with muscles, has to do with tendons, has to do with bursa, tends to do with ligaments. All these things, it's the not always the tear, but the straining, so the stretching of it, or damaging, whether it could be micro or macro. It could be bursa that's removed or leaking, and therefore bones are rubbing together. It can be nerve compression, things like that. It's all kinds of things doing with the body. And everybody's biology is a little bit different. Everybody's body dimensions are a little bit different. That's called anthropometrics. I'm not going to cover that in here, but when I used to do a lot of ergonomic work at the state of Wisconsin, and I was adjusting office chairs for people who are sitting, 7 to 9 hours a day, if the chair didn't provide me the proper adjustability for their specific anthropometric measures, then we'd have to get a new chair, or I would take it apart and create a new one. And that's really everything here. Understanding the risk factors and all the wide range of disorders that go with it. So OSHA does have a page in which they talk about some citations that were initiated to Amazon. Amazon's a huge employer. And here's an example of one of the citations. And it has to see they cited the General Duty Clause, OSHA Act 1970, Section 5A1, provided for place of employment for recognized hazards. And they talk about that the employer isn't doing enough to mitigate. And they talk about RULA and REBA, the NIOSH lifting equation, things like that. Sometimes they'll cite record keeping for ergonomics too, because they're not properly documenting it. So this is just an example. You can find out how many citations and the amounts per standard, but we don't have a standard, so I couldn't run that basic assessment. I will for other lectures. And while we're on the subject, I'm rebuilding some of this, but what I think I might do is build some intro videos so I can use some of my older lecture videos, just so I can make this material available sooner than later. From the OSHA website, we're going to look at this. They have how to identify problems and how to observe workplace conditions. This is building off of all the things you read and did in Module 1. How to assess what's going on, maybe using injury records to guide you, the different techniques. It's really a customized job hazard analysis. That's what I've always used. Break down all the individual tasks of the work and then try to determine what movements or positions may contribute to an ergonomic risk. Like we had seen in the citation, you can use RULA or REBA. It's rapid upper limb assessment, or rapid EBA. What does that stand for? I thought that was like the that's upper limb. Is it upper body or something body? And then there's also specialized computer techniques. And we're going to take a look at all those. I just wanted to point out that OSHA kind of lays out how to do it, and it aligns directly with what we had covered in week 1. There are other resources through the ergonomics health and safety topic page, and you can see it starts with job hazard analysis, which you already took a look at. This publication. It was provided to you before, but there are other things as well, and some are specific to an industry, others are just broader. As far as setting up a office workstation or a sitting or standing assembly or quality assessment, it's about keeping things in sort of a neutral position, so you're not reaching too much, that you're not bending too much. And actually, sitting is worse for your lower back than standing. I didn't provide that particular picture, but research has shown that when people are sitting, their low back tends to be more sore. If you sit all the way back in your chair so you have lumbar support, it helps it. And if you can lean back in your chair a little bit, it can help it even more. But when you're standing, that tends to be better. If you can adjust between sitting and standing, that's the best. Movement is always really good, as long as it isn't an awkward posture. And so having things supported, having the proper depth of a seat pan, the proper height of the seat pan, a lumbar support, armrest, these are all really good. If you have an assembly, it's more about keeping everything within easy reach of the person, and any tools are hopefully tethered or on an articulating arm to reduce its weight and usage. And if it vibrates, you're trying to absorb that. If it can hit, like when you're using an electric screw and it tightens and then it kind of twists or turns, you can have an anti-torque that will break. Vision, you want things to be right below the horizon, so you're kind of looking down. We naturally gaze downward. If it's up, or if you're using reading glasses like I am right now, we lean our head back to see things. And then other things like here they've got a headphone or whatever. If you try to cradle like a regular receiver right here, that can hurt your neck. If this thing is too high or too low, it can cause shoulder problems. I've done a million, literally, no, I haven't. I've done a lot of ergonomic assessments, both from an assembly workstation and an office workstation. It really comes down to the person, the type of tasks they're doing, and their ability to move around and to have support when they have to be static. That's what it's really about. Other resources, there are professional organizations that provide resources. We're not going to get too far into that. If this is going to be an area of expertise for you, I used to be a member of HFES in grad school. My work was all in industrial engineering, and so I was very satisfied with being parts of these organizations. So there's the International Ergo Association, there's the Applied Ergonomic, which is under the Industrial Systems Engineering, which I used to be part of. Recommend that you go to conferences, go through the expo hall. You'll get there's always vendors with the latest technology or software when it comes to ergonomics or musculoskeletal disorder prevention. And then spend a little time on Google or YouTube. That's what I've been doing a lot in preparing for this lecture. There's a lot of stuff out there. Some basic solutions. Once you've assessed what's going on and what the issue may be, neutral positioning is always the best. And really you want it to be adjustable, especially if you have shift workers. You have multiple people working at the same workstation. You need it to be adjustable so they can make a neutral to their specific or individual anthropometrics. Sit, stand, lean options are always great because doing any one position all day or all shift can be burdensome. If you don't want people standing on concrete because that really transfers a lot of the stress as they're trying to stand up straight into the hips and legs, and that can cause them to be sore. So they have those cushion pads that people can stand on. Anti-fatigue mats is what they call them. What I'd like to see is the implementation of robotics and automation to reduce repetitive work, less manual material handling. Work hardening is another thing you can do. That's like a person training for like a sport. Is that you don't hire them and it's like go boom, hit the numbers you're always going to hit, but you have a schedule in which they are building up their physical capacities to do the work. And then once they're in the work, you can try and tweak it so it's easier for them. That or use of exoskeletons. Exoskeletons are becoming less expensive, more run by AI, and that can help reduce any sort of movement weight or just basic fatigue. Work rotation schedules is another thing you can do, especially if you have multiple jobs that they affect the body differently. You rotate people to different positions, and then they're not doing 8 hours of repetitive work. They're doing 2 hours of repetitive work, and then they're doing 2 hours of this type of work, things like that. Stretching and wellness programs can help, and that really should be aligned with the work hardening. To make sure that they have a minimal expectation for fitness, the ability to recover from a day's work or a week's work, shift's work. And then, of course, encouraging early reporting of pain and soreness and provide access to PT and OT consultation, whether it be having a person who comes to your plant once a week or once every 2 weeks, or having a tele OT or PT where they can get onto a call, Zoom call, Teams call, WebEx call, and talk to someone about their soreness or pain. And because if you catch it earlier enough, you shouldn't have develop a full-blown disorder. So to review before I go to the OSHA website and we have some fun, I want you to know that there is no OSHA ergonomic standard, but there are consensus standards out there. MSDs or musculoskeletal are the most frequent. They are very costly because it tends to be, a person has to recover. The older a person gets, the longer it takes for them to recover, if at all. And if you go to surgery, it's not 100% either. want you to know what the risk factors are. That's basically force, repetition, posture, positioning, things like that. What are the recommended practices to reduce? Kind of talked about those, and we'll get into those. And then there's different types of assessments: ruler, REBA, Nash lifting equation. But it's mostly a job hazard analysis, JHA. All right, let's get to some of the things. So I provided a bunch of videos. We're going to go to the OSHA topics page. We looked at the news release and the OSHA standards, but I want you to look at those more. And then I've got all these different links, some really good videos to kind of help. So here's the ergonomics page. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see it. And they have identify problems, solutions and controls, training and assistance, and then standards and enforcement, workers' rights. We don't have to look at that. Examples of MSDs are right here, kind of covered that. Here's existing guidelines. So like for beverage delivery, I don't know if you guys have any of you have done that, but usually it's a manual, lifting of 12 packs and kegs and cases onto a dolly, and then that dolly is brought into the store, and then it's lifted again into the storage. And there's been a lot of injuries to beverage delivery people. They tend to work alone as well. Let's see, foundries, they're lifting a lot of heavy stuff. Nursing homes always, because you're lifting humans, and they shift in weight and they're combative and things like that. Shipyards, heavy work. Retail, grocery stores, again, similar to the beverage. Poultry processing, a lot of repetition, a lot of awkward postures there. And then guidelines for meatpacking plants. So that's really where ergonomics got its foothold with OSHA, was meatpacking. That's how I learned about ergonomics. Was I had started with OSHA in 1994. Really just dated myself. There's some NIOSH references here too. High-risk occupations. It's kind of cool. Process for protecting workers. So management support involving workers, training, identify problems, encourage reporting, come up with controls, evaluate progress. This is all things we had covered in week 1, right? All right, let's identify problems here. So we should be looking at sort of the manual work that's being done and the body postures that are being exhibited. You can see here this person, it would be better if either he could be raised up or this could be raised down, or actually gravity fed to him so that he doesn't have to raise his arms way above his shoulder and lift this. Let's see, if that's 5 gallons and water is 8 pounds per gallon, that's about 40 pounds. Kind of heavy for above the shoulder, right? So they talk about cold temps, they talk about vibration. Let's see. And then there's resources down here, and this is the picture that I had provided to you. Let's see, it has different types of evaluations. Here's the NIOSH lifting equation. NIOSH lifting equation is not a validated method for assessment, but it gives you an indication of what element of the job should be focused on first in order to try to make a correction. That's about all it is. Let's go to solutions. Yep, they've got the hazard control hierarchy in a way. It's not perfect, but we'd covered this in lecture 11, I think, last lecture. And they've got different resources here. So engineering controls, administrative controls, PPE. I think I'd shown you in my preview video that I had done an ergonomic work in which I had allowed a person doesn't have to bend over to pick something up because there's a lift for it. There's stories and resources here as well. They tend to be industry specific though, as you can see. But I'm going to show you some newer solutions that I found. Training and assistance, you basically have to let the person know that we can't eliminate this important part of your job you're doing, but we're going to try to mitigate its effects on your body. And this is what we're going to do. And then please let us know when you're feeling pain or soreness, and we'll see if we can't fix it. Standards and enforcement. It just really just talks about use of the General Duty Clause, 5A1. Okay? All right, next one. This is the OSHA Technical Manual. And here we've got something on back disorders and injuries. We click on that. How do you get to the OSHA Tech Manual? You go to A to Z index and T for Technical Manual. And then scroll down to disorders. And this has some good information too. So this is what a compliance officer will use to assess. It's not really long. The chapter's not super long. It talks a little bit about the NIOSH lifting equation. They use it. I would argue against it because it isn't validated, but at least allows you to kind of prioritize. So this is kind of old school stuff. but sometimes still companies use it just to prioritize. That's all it is used for, really. I looked under the ANSI standard because they have a lot of the consensus standards. There really aren't any general ANSI standards for ergonomics, but there is an ISO. I believe there's a BSEN, British standard, another couple ISOs. But you see what the expense is for those. If we go back, they've got them for office, for vehicle, for thermal, machine ergonomics, human system interaction, control center ergonomics, accessibility ergonomics, software and hand tool. Let's see what this has. It's an ISO. Here's an ANSI standard for human exposure to vibration. I talked about that briefly. Yeah. So this is just another source. I think there's enough free stuff out there that you wouldn't need this, but depending on who your employer is, they may want to be able to refer to a standard in which you followed. It's up to them. Here's a link to the news release about the Amazon inspection. And I just thought it would be interesting to provide this to you simply because we can't do the, was it establishment search? I thought maybe it's data and then cited standards and then frequency cited OSHA standards with a specific standard. Yeah, so I can't type in 5A1, I don't think. Jeez, it's windy out. No, I know that they've got general duty, whatever, cited, so we could see it. No, not exactly what I wanted. If I go back under data, do they have fatality, establishment, severe, injury tracking, top 10? I thought they had a listing by general duty clause, just general duty clause citations, but I'm not seeing it here. That's interesting though, right? Pretty sure there is one though. General duty is not one of the top 10. Yeah, that's by NAICS code. But anyway, so that's why I couldn't do that. That's why, because it's not a thing. And then here's just a sample of the citation. Here's, I didn't provide this, but Ergo Plus, I just searched Rula and Reba, and you can see here they can talk about, so it's just a form. You see, this is an assessment form. It's similar to the NIOSH lifting equation, where what you're doing is you're watching the job and you're trying to code something. So it's like a risk-based approach, and basically it just allows you to prioritize. It comes up with a score, and it tries to let you know what the score is bad, but I really think it's more of a prioritization, that if you can reduce the numbers that are coded, the better off you are. And Reba, it's a similar, but it focuses on different aspects of the person's interaction. Oh, this is kind of cool. Let's see here. Oh, really? You're not going to let me watch it for free? You did before. Oh, here we go.
Velocity EHS Ergonomics is your all-in-one software solution for managing workplace ergonomics, and it's now faster and more accurate than ever before. Leveraging the latest in 3D modeling, computer vision, and machine learning, it helps you predict and prevent musculoskeletal disorders to keep your workers safe, healthy, and productive. Unlike other assessment-only tools, this complete system is everything your organization needs to deploy, manage, and sustain an ergonomics process. From one site to hundreds of global locations.
That would reduce those
Your team will be supported with many capabilities to help identify, quantify, and prioritize worker risks, and identify and address the right root causes to ensure you're fixing the right problem. Interactive online education in multiple languages, an AI-based 3D assessment model that includes hand and wrist postures, the embedded expertise of certified professional ergonomists, with workshops to reinforce the process, design guidelines for multiple populations, a robust dashboard with flexible reporting to help identify trends and track progress, These are just a few of the ways Velocity EHS Ergonomics will help you build a world-class ergonomics process that can grow with your company to help both your workforce and your business thrive. Request a demonstration today to see why Velocity EHS...
So, I think you were able to hear that because I was looking at a little monitor thing and the little volume thing was going up and down. But so this is just one of many, many companies and resources that are out there. I just came across it and I thought it was kind of cute. I've seen Velocity EHS at other conferences. There's another one, Make You Safe. So this is a wearable technology and it uploads continuous data to a cloud, and that cloud can analyze it to find out when, where were they when they were exhibiting postures, movements that could be considered risky. And it's a newer product. It's still, they're still experimenting with how to do it, but it's kind of a cool thing. And so I just wanted to let you know. I think I provided a link to SolarSpine, which is kind of an earlier version of this wearable technology. Wearable technology is becoming more and more popular. I think, personally, I think there'd be something really cool that could be put into the sole of a shoe that would be a really good sort of determinant of a person's posture and movement as far as where they're putting weight on their feet and how much weight there is. It could also pick up when someone trips and falls, and I don't know if these devices have that ability. Or if they're jumping down from something. I don't know. I just thought, I don't even know. Is there sound going on? I don't think so. Yeah, it's off. But anyway, so this is just another option. And then if you Google exoskeleton or exoskeleton ergonomics, it's amazing what's going on now with, they're integrating AI into this. So I would think the integration of a wearable technology with exoskeletons that help a person, do work above their head, and it doesn't put as much stress or strain on their shoulders, or lift something and it doesn't put as much strain on their low back. I think it's really cool. I think they've come down in price here or there, and I think they're probably finding military and construction uses more readily than general industry. You could put this, integrate this into like a personal fall arrest, things like, there's a lot of things that can be done with exoskeleton technology. And I think we're just really getting into it. I think it's only like 10, 15 years old. So it is still fairly new. But so there's a lot of good stuff. And I did provide links to videos. So let's see, this is a Velocity EHS. Let's see. Oh, and then robots for moving things around. So any technology that reduces the worker's efforts, lift assistive technologies, exoskeletons, and then I got the SolarSpine wearable technology. It's because I couldn't find anything specific for Make You Safe. So that's everything for Ergo. So make sure you guys do the reflection and the assignment and the quiz when you're all done.